Welcome to the Boardroom Sessions podcast. In these sessions, we meet the most amazing and interesting people. We learn about their passions, their business models, cool new technologies, and of course, their lessons on personal growth. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to a special collaborative edition of the Boardroom Sessions podcast. In this podcast, I collaborate with Mark Redgrave of Shift. Mark's a transformational consultant, works with companies to help them with their people, their processes, their teams. And he's launching a new podcast called Up Shifts Creek. And in this podcast, he actually interviews me on his first inaugural edition, what an honor, of his podcast. We talk about all things not tech, if you will. The title of the podcast here is It's Not All About Tech. And we get into the details of the state of the union as we see it with different clients and outcomes, and think that you're going to really enjoy this one. Look forward to hearing your feedback. Thanks.
All right, here we go. Welcome to the first ever Up Shift Creek podcast. So look, when I meet a lot of people, they say, Mark, you know so much stuff. You need to write a book. You need to do a podcast. I don't really do books, so podcast it is. So here we are. Firstly, a couple of disclosures before we get into it. Like, I love my job. I get to talk to some amazing companies and meet with some brilliant people. We're not going to name names here unless we're expressly allowed to do so. But either way, the opinions you hear from myself and anybody else here are our own. Some of the stuff we got might get a bit ugly. We might swear a bit. Cover your ears, cover your pets. It's all okay. We're just going to say it like we see it. But I'm really excited to be here. When I arrived in Orange County, which was about a year ago, actually, I met a lot of people, and they kept saying, "Do you know Mike Miller? Have you met Mike?" That was like a repeating theme. And I thought to myself, like, okay, I need to get to know this guy, Mike. So I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by Mr. Mike Miller. Mike runs his own podcast as well, called The Boardroom Session. So this is a great little collab.
Very cool collab. Very happy to have us both on the podcast here.
Yeah, my first podcast ever. Never done this before. You know more than me, so keep me on the straight and narrow.
No problem. And you're also taking care of my monthly podcast quota here, so I'm looking forward to it.
That's great. So look, I'm not going to introduce you because you can do a better job than that. So, Mike, tell people, who are you? What do you do?
Well, first of all, I like to say thank you for the collaboration here. And I'm looking forward to this conversation because you and I have had very similar conversations like this already. Two, thanks for the welcome and the note about being a name that you need to meet with, right? That means I'm doing my job out there and have a decent reputation versus one of not being irrelevant or not being a guy you want to meet with. So I'm grateful for that. And more importantly, we found out we're neighbors. We found out that you live in Huntington Beach and that you're a water guy like myself. I think you've taken it to a whole new level. I play surfer, paddleboarder, ocean guy. You're into the foiling, which takes it literally to a whole new level.
Literally a little bit above you.
Yeah, a little bit above, right? On the foiling, you get up and out of the water, and that's a whole new level. And I'm looking forward to exploring some of that with you in the future here. But I think the question was, what is it that I do?
Yeah, exactly.
And the question is, or the answer to that is, I do a lot of things, but I help clients, corporate enterprise companies navigate the technology arena, right? So they come to me and ask questions around what the Joneses are doing to solve certain problems. And I help as a vendor agnostic solutions consultant. I work for a company called Upstack, which is a tiger team, if you will, of advisors that are out there helping customers in an agnostic manner, meaning that we don't fly a brand or a flag or what have you. I can go anywhere to get anything to help anyone with a problem if I believe it's going to help them. And so we do a lot of investigation, a lot of work. I act in many capacities for those clients. Sometimes it's an advisor. Sometimes it's a consultant. Sometimes it's a guy who knows a guy. And so yeah.
And I guess that's why when I meet people, start to build my network here, your name came up so much because like tech is everywhere, right? And it will continue to be so. And the theme I want for our conversation today is this idea, which I've stolen, by the way, but this comment, which is like, it's never just tech, right? And I just want to dig into that for the next few minutes, because technology is everywhere. It's important. We have things like AI rising real fast, but it's never just about the technology. And what I want to just to get us sort of launched into the conversation, the first question I want to ask you is, okay, feet on the street, because one thing you do so well is you're out there meeting customers, talking to them about what they're trying to do. Feet on the street view, what's going on out there?
Yeah.
Technology-wise.
Yeah. So let's first talk about the network, right? And so why it is that my name comes up on a regular basis. And for a professional living, I help customers with networks, for example, right? That's part of the technology that they buy. They are looking for wide area networks and disparate networks and ways in which they can communicate with each other. However, that being said, my entire professional career has been built around building human networks first, right? Networks of people that can collaborate, have similar agendas, similar needs in the world, and therefore I can get introduced to the people that need help, right? I can get introduced to the people that actually will be able to provide the help for my clients once I get there. So the human network is the most important network, and it's not tech, right? Even the word network means that we're building some communications plan between people. And so I just want to make that comment first.
Yep.
That I spent a lot of time, I still do spend a lot of time. That's how we met. I run, networking events. I run networking groups and things of that nature, all to build that human network, right? And so I think people are thriving for that in today's and are craving that in today's environment. Especially post-COVID world where lots of people are home and remote. It's harder for them to build that human network now. So it's not all about the tech. It's about that human-to-human network first and foremost. But you asked a question around what is going on, feet on the street, right? What am I seeing? And what I'm seeing right now out in the world is a lot of, there's a lot of looking, there's a lot of conversations, there's a lot of planning that's going into things. Cost cutting is definitely a thing.
Yep.
People are looking to streamline efficiencies. They're looking for cost optimization is a hot term that's out there right now for many of their products and services. They're looking to find out ways in which they can do things differently in those regards. And I'm seeing a lot of organizational changes as a result, right? A lot of my customers have consolidated or reorganized structure around things to try and better solve problems. So I think there's a lot of very high level consolidation and going on in some of the companies right now that I'm seeing.
Yeah,
for sure.
So are we going into a recession? What's happening, right? Because I've been reading about this like the last few weeks, because some research I came across yesterday, from I think it was one of the McKinsey global reports at the end of March, and basically there's a 10% improvement from December, so in one quarter, of sentiment towards like this is going to be a soft landing, no recession, right? So McKinsey CEOs say we're not going into recession. So my question for you is, why is everyone waiting? Because it feels to me like people are sat like they're sat on the fence right now, waiting to do something. Do you feel the same thing?
Absolutely. Without a question, it's a thing. It's a real thing. And so I work with a lot of different clients. Let's start with the clients first, and then we'll talk vendors second. But they're both facing the same problem or same challenge. So I have an opportunity to work with some clients that have been new to their role, right? CIO, VP of IT, CTO, for example. Those three titles, I know of 3 individuals right now, for example, that are within their first 12 months in a role, okay? In those roles, their first orders of business are to evaluate the team to find out who needs to be replaced and or shored up on that team. They're asked to cut costs and evaluate budgets, right? And so we're looking at cost first on several of these accounts that I'm working on right now. And so that's what's happening. I mean, that tells me, I'm not an economist. I'm not here to tell you whether there's a recession or not a recession coming on, but I can tell you there's definitely a slow going on in the market.
So that slow, I think that's a key thing, right? So a soft landing means no recession, slow growth, not no growth,
right?
Slow growth. So, I feel like there's clearly pressure from these organizations on reaching whatever growth targets they've set themselves, right? And you have to run at cost to do that.
Sure.
Yeah. If it's a tough sales market, like running at cost is a way to do that.
That's right. And don't forget, we're heading into an election year, right? And so election years I've been through a few, and every time there's some uncertainty going on around budgets, or whether we roll out that new product right now, or whether we go hire those folks for that team. Let's wait and see how things are going to happen here. And so that's just part of the cycle I've noticed over my career. And so that's one thing. But the other thing you're talking about, some companies are in trouble, right? And so they look great on the outside, but when I start talking with the executives inside, they're a couple quarters away from trouble, right? And they don't want to say that, but they're
trouble in what way? Like
whether the business is going to be viable, or whether they're going to lose some competitive edge to somebody else, right? And so that's part of it. So I see some of that happening, and then I'm seeing quite a bit of my customers right now truly evaluate the way they've been going about things recently. All ideas are on the table. And some of my clients, one or two in particular that I've spoken to, are under headquarters to reduce costs.
Yeah.
Like at all costs.
Yeah.
And so that tells me there's trouble brewing.
So there's a couple of angles to this cost thing, right? And obviously my area of expertise is more on the people, the human capital side, how you really drive efficiency in the way you operate, right? So I'm sat here, there's efficiency in technology and there's efficiency in people, right? Mm-hmm. My question for you is, are these companies thinking about how technology can make their people better?
Yes.
So, because that has to be the trick here, right?
For sure. So first, let's talk about organizational structure. So those folks that I mentioned that were within their first 12 months of their career, right, with this new company, those folks' first job, first order is to get a look at the team, find out who's there, who's capable, who's able to drive change, who has the technology skills to help get to the next level. Do they have the right folks on staff to help make those changes? And if they don't, then how can they go about getting them? I've had some situations that I've worked at a few clients where people are leaving the organizations because it's a buyer's market for an employee. Somebody who has a skill, they can go take it elsewhere.
Yeah, and it's been like that long time, right? 3 years now.
Yes.
Yep.
And so people are feeling very brazen about their ability to go somewhere else and start up shop. And there's a lot of things going on there regarding how people want to live, where they want to live, that also plays into it.
Yeah.
I think most people are open to having the right person for the right role, depending on where they're at. But that's new. That's something that's within the last 5 years. 5 years ago, no one would consider telling their boss they're going to move out of state and deal with it. Yeah. But today that's happening quite a bit. You know what?
There's a statistic here that is absolutely what you're just talking about. So there's a group called the Conference Board, right? 1,200 CXOs. This is a report that's just been published. And the top 10 issues US CEOs will face in 2024, number one, attracting and retaining talent. Still.
Yes.
Right? Like we've been talking about this for 3 years,
yes.
Man. Like, and COVID obviously changed everything, right? But like, it's very interesting to me that is the thing, above improving customer experience, right? Above introducing AI and disruptive technologies.
Yes.
They can't find and keep the right people.
So there's a couple of points to that I want to make here. You asked a question I didn't fully answer about what it is they're looking to solve for in some of these scenarios. And it plays here, the talent, right? So attracting talent is important, right? So I run a networking group of technology executives,
yep.
And I've asked the question of them about hiring folks from out of state, or would you allow someone to move from the local area and move out. And there's mixed emotions about it, obviously, that still prevail. One of the emotions is right person, the right job, yes. But the question comes to play in regards to collaboration, right? How do we collaborate? And some roles, DevOps, people that are on these creatives, right? Folks that are needing to collaborate, if you will. It's difficult to collaborate and work with folks externally, right? Even if we're on a Zoom meeting, it's different than if we were all working in the same office. So they're looking at solving that problem differently. There's retreats, there's in the office times, there's certain points in time where we'll all be in for a week at a time and they'll huddle on certain things. There's ways to get around that. But back to so that's one of the challenges, I think, in the remote versus local workspace. Regarding finding the right talent, there's no doubt in my mind, you and I both know a few folks that are in the talent acquisition business. They're busy. They're busy trying to find the right people for certain roles. I've had customers come to me and say, I have an open rec. It used to be fill the seat. Now it's let's interview 5, 6, 7 people for that role that are all quality candidates so that I can make sure we're making the right decision on the right person. As a matter of fact, I even have one of my CIOs I spoke to a couple weeks ago that was willing to let 2 or 3 people go to get one higher quality, more salaried individual on the team because they thought it would be better for the organization.
So that's such an interesting concept, right? Because what I find in working with larger organizations is if you take a slightly different approach to the way you think about cost and budgeting, right? What you say is there's this concept of basically giving functional groups envelopes of labor cost, right? Budgets. And then it becomes a question of how do you as a leader wish to invest your envelope, right? So let's pick a number. You got $1.6 million to staff your team, okay? How do you want to staff it? Do you want, fewer good people, or do you want more slightly lower paid people? And what I think is a really interesting concept is to give the leaders of those groups the autonomy to make those decisions, right? Because traditionally what we do is we go into a structured organization where there are roles, right? There are literally empty boxes in org charts to fill. And as a leader, as a manager, your job is fill those boxes, man, right? I've got 4 DevOps guys. I have to fill them. Right. What if you step back and you say, especially under cost constraint, you say, right, what do I need here?
And it's driving a lot of conversations. So let's just pick one area. Let's pick the call center or the support center, right? So organizations that have people that are answering the phones or handling tickets, if you will, for internal tickets and IT support, things of that nature, that type of role, when there are open recs today, people are more willing to look at alternatives such as AI, conversational AI. Maybe something can automate a workflow for me that could do without a person. Right. That's the first question. So there's a lot of tech conversations going on right now. My vendor market space is rich with people that are doing technology automation, right? Where they're being able to open up a ticket, converse with a voice bot, work with a chat bot, have that integrate into tools and systems that you have to ultimate goal, better the experience and lower the HR cost. I don't have to have as many people here. I can have this bot do a lot of it, right?
Yep.
So that creates a couple of issues. The other issues are now I have people that are supporting these tickets better. They're handling situations and cases faster. They're doing, I can have a higher level, higher quality person there rather than somebody who needs to be a generalist on the phone taking the ticket, right? The other thing that's also happening here in my business is I'm able to bring those clients fractional shift-based type of services for those traditional call centers or traditional ticketing or marketing or seasonal businesses, if you will, where they can actually not have a W-2 employee,
right? Where
they can go to a service and have somebody who's trained, staffed on shift-based business where you're going to need it, right? Flex, shift, that's been a very big topic probably one of the top two topics right now going on in my business today, is to help with that.
Yeah. So when you talk, when like that makes real good logical sense to me, right? Challenge that introduces is, from a cultural point of view, is like, right, how do we get high performing teams with fractional people, right? It's just a different problem. It's not more difficult. It's not less difficult, but it's just a different problem.
Right.
And I find that, like, one of the things that I think is an emerging conversation in these organizations is this concept of, like, how do we, with the people, the roles, like all this stuff kind of in flux and changing, it's like, how do we get these teams to work together to be more productive, right? This is the word. Okay, this is the word everyone's kicking around.
Yeah.
And one thing, Mike, that just really, like, I can say with absolute clarity is, every team you meet, right, out there is like between 20 and 25% of productivity, like, dormant in that team because of, and I know this having worked with over 350 teams over the last kind of 6 or 7 years, it's like the way they work together is as important as the technology they introduce, right? So I think that's why this is such an interesting conversation.
It is.
There is a clear technical drive towards efficiency, right? And it manifests as AI, but other things as well. Yeah. But it's like, there needs to be a parallel conversation around, how do our teams work in this new hybrid environment with fractional roles? It's like, how do we get those guys pumping?
Yeah.
Because you can invest 250 grand in technology over here. You've got 250 grand of dormant value in your team, right? Like, that would be I would say that's true.
Yes.
And these two things exist side by side, right?
And for myself, it's evident in the accounts that I'm in, the different companies that I'm in and out of on a regular basis. Two companies, same industry, taking market share from each other, competing with each other. It's very evident to me by the team collaboration, by the team environment that they have, by the way they work together, the way they're all on the same page, who's doing well and not, right?
Yeah.
You could literally look at the dollars and cents associated with who's on performing and who's not. And it's evident, and to the point where I get to pick and choose my customers to some extent. And therefore I choose to hang out with some of those clients that are well-tuned, well-oiled machines, right? And there's tenure in those organizations, for one. There's clear purpose and direction in those organizations of what their role is in their structure, and what they're there to do. And they have clear KPIs of how they're going to get to those. Yeah. Other organizations, I hear them complain and have excuses around, oh, well, that's because our structures were PE backed, or we're whatever, or we just merged with that company. We haven't been able to assimilate together cultures, and there's agendas, and we're still infighting. I hear that. That comes up when we're having a conversation around technology. So it's very evident to me which companies are going to do well. I can tell by the people. And
what's fun about what you just said is, like, you're not, about some of the things that I specialize in, but, like, the words you've just used to describe those situations, right, are exactly the key to what I would call high performing teams, right? So when you align around purpose, when you align with clear goals, these are the things, right, that make teams gel.
Yes. That
give teams clarity and direction and motivation, right, to do work. And I think the thing that really interests me about this whole space, especially with the rise of AI. Let's talk about AI for a second, right? Because it's such a hot topic. I heard today, actually, I got an email from someone and they quoted this, and it was from Mark Andreessen, right, of Andreessen Horowitz, probably the best VC in the world. And he said, quote, "AI is quite possibly the most important thing civilization has ever created." Okay, like that's a pretty big deal.
Of hype, right?
That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
But like the understanding that, like, this technology is only going to create value in the hands of people, teams, organizations that can organize around it. It's like that's clear to me, very, very clear.
For sure. And we're early days as far as my position here on AI. Okay, when it's going to actually be, there's products are abound. Everybody's invested in, all the PEs invested in, and I can tell by the suppliers that come to train me and tell me to come sell their stuff. Right, bring their tools to the table. They're everywhere, and they're all saying the same thing. So let's talk about two buckets of AI if we want to get into the technology conversation. Bucket one that I deal with regularly is what we're going to call conversational AI. Okay, these are chat bots, voice bots, conversations that are happening, tracking all of the data that comes in to an organization via any communications, whether it be chat, voicemail, phone call, email, whatever we call it, omni-channel, whatever that communication flow is, they want to record it. They want to dive into it, right? And then use that conversational tools to help better the
and
business.
I think so honestly, in some of these, I think some of the quality of these bots is accelerating rapidly, right? I'm quite impressed actually with some of that stuff. So
and they really can.
Not all hype. Some of it's
not all
good.
hype at all. People are using it today. And as a matter of fact, my daughter, who's 20, right, would tell you she's not going to call into a call center and wait on an 800 number. Wait on hold to talk to somebody to deal with something. She's going to go to her handheld and try and use the web to engage with that company. Yep. And the ones that do will have her attention. The ones that don't will not have her attention. Yep. And so that goes for anything in that type of space and that scenario. The other form of AI that's being investigated and talked about for certain, without a doubt, is the generative AI. And so now that I have all this data, I have all this conversational data, whether it be voice calls, chat bot conversations, even internal conversations that are going on in an organization. What are we saying on our Teams meeting? What are we saying on our Zoom meetings? What are we saying together internally on our own internal blogs and collaboration tools that we're using? What are we saying to each other on our own emails? All of that data is being put in lakes today, for lack of a better term, data lakes, if you will. Yep. And the CIO clients are asking me, how do I get to that data and how do I pull actionable intelligence out of that data? Yep. And so the answer today is there's 100 ways to skin that cat, and it depends on what you're looking to accomplish with that. Everybody's coming at it. This is the first time I've seen this in a long time. Everybody's coming at this problem. So it does the generative AI piece of this pie. Yeah. So it doesn't matter whether you bought a CRM, doesn't matter whether you bought an ERP, it doesn't matter whether you have some bolt-on tool, a data set, a marketing tool. They all are claiming to be able to do this for the customer and come at them with their tools. So the fight is on right now.
It feels so 2000 to me, right? So, and I can say with a great deal of confidence, I doubt I'll be proved wrong, like 80% of this shit's going to fall away, right? There'll be winners. I would bet that the winners are going to be in the hands of the big guys, the Googles, the Microsofts, the Salesforces. These guys will win because they'll be the guys integrating, like the platforms that are in these companies are going to be impossible to usurp. That's always been the case, right?
No doubt. And I'm going to tell you, you missed the one that I would think that could be a market leader here, and that's Microsoft, right? Yeah. We used to make fun of Microsoft a few years ago. Yeah. We used to think that they were a tech lagger, right? They're because we are using O365 today almost predominantly. Okay, they're positioned perfectly to be able to take AI, and they're going to drip feed you tools. Yeah,
like Copilot, which is already really good, man.
Copilot's incredible, and there's right now I'm helping clients find ways to train their staff on how to use Copilot, how to have better efficiencies, where it's going to work and not work for them. They're buying technology today to help solve that problem because it's time and efficiency.
So let's talk about that, right? Because what I see, I think this AI thing is a lot of bluster. I think there's some really solid technology and in the hands of, and I stopped laughing at Microsoft 10 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And when I realized these guys are going to win. So, but what I see is within organizations is okay, there's a couple of ways. I think it's very challenging for organizations. So let's now play the role of I'm a employee at a normal company, right? And I see this excitement about AI. All I think about is my job about to change? Yeah, is my job at risk? right? And what I think is really interesting is like, okay, we have to help these organizations. If I'm a leader at these organizations, I've got to help my people see this change as opportunity, not threat. Because what I see is threat. Yeah, and I see the predominant conversations, and it's media driven, right? But it's like if you chase cost, that looks like people out, right? That looks like threat, risk. That's a horrible way to run a company, right? So what I think is really interesting is getting companies to understand what's the narrative, right? How do we need to tell this story within our organization? Because it's coming. AI is going to be part of our future.
Yeah.
But how do I get my teams to say, you know what? I understand this. I know what this is going to do for us, right? And it's an opportunity for me to reskill, for me to, like you've got to see it. This is a classic case of like embracing change, not resisting change. And I think that's really complicated, right? So when you talk to from a technology point of view, do you think companies see that?
It depends on who you're talking to in the organization. Okay, I'll give you an example. So conversational AI, a year and a half to 2 years ago, the conversation started with, hey, you have the ability to automate this workflow. Did you know? Right? Yeah, but that's a chatbot. No one wants to talk to a chatbot, right? I'm like, did you talk to any this week? Did you talk to any this last month? And the answer was always yes. I'm like, well, why is it not ready for your organization if you're using it somewhere else, right? People were slow to adopt in the enterprise, okay? Today, that's not the case. They're rapidly looking to find out ways in which they can start to use these tools, these conversational AI tools today, because they know there's a percentage of the conversations that are happening, whether they be on whatever channel they're coming in on, that can be automated to get to a real person. And that automation takes like a 6, 7, 8 to 1 to person ratio, right? So you could actually have actionable intelligence. Let's just take one use case. One use case of a trouble tickets being opened up in an organization for like an IT support desk, okay? Somebody has a problem with their laptop, they have a password problem or something of that nature, they call into their IT team, right? That used to go to a call center, go call in a call queue or an email queue, talk to an individual, open up a ticket, leave that conversation while a person goes and works the ticket. Today, that can be all automated to the point where you get your password without ever talking to a human being if they can do the authentication stuff correctly, right? So we're taking some of those use cases right off the table without having to talk to a person. The next level is the ones in which you want to take that ticket and have the right person be able to handle that at the right time. And we're finding that's being done more efficiently, faster, and with fewer people now if you're automating some of that process. And so it turns into a people person or people solution right away.
And the organization though has got to lean into that as positive change.
Yes,
and it's quite challenging though because to be honest, you open the paper every day. There's no papers anymore, but like you go onto any website and it's like, there's going to be 60 million people unemployed by 2029.
They love to sell fear.
Exactly. Yeah. Right? So but this is what we're battling against.
It is. And so back in those conversations, I started the conversation with 2 years ago. The conversations were now they're starting to become more real because I think different people are picking up the problem. Okay. So originally I was having conversations with, let's say, a contact center leader, right? And having a conversation around conversational AI and how it might be able to better their experience, right? Make the agent's life better, present better documents, maybe automate a workflow, et cetera. They would view that as, that's going to take people off of my head count that I'm responsible for, that build my career, that make me a valuable person in this organization. And if you lower my head count and put more technology in here, where's my value and where's my power in the situation? Those words weren't used to me, right? But I know that those were some of the issues that were going on in some of those organizations. That's not able to be had today. If you're going to be effective in your business, you would be best suited to be looking at any and all options. And one of the top options right now is to automate. Where possible.
You've just described the hierarchical organizational structure of 90% of businesses in America.
Yeah.
Right? Where your worth is determined by your managerial prowess, which is determined by the number of people you manage. Right? Which is in my mind, such an outdated concept.
Yes.
Right? Because if you want to talk about creating value, it has nothing to do with the number of people that work for you.
But that wasn't the belief. And that's still not the belief with many people that I deal with, right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And so one of the things I'm super excited about having this conversation with you about, Mark, is a lot of my business is nothing to do with technology, right? I get called in because they have an issue, or they're looking to explore alternatives in the market, or they're in a buying cycle for some type of technology and things are changing. And that's where I get brought in. But immediately it's Mike, his open book, a pen, and some questions. And when I get into the questions, it's always about the people.
Yeah.
It's about the people, the organization, the KPIs, the organizational structure of how they're going to win and how they're going to lose if they don't, right?
Yeah.
What happens if you make a great decision here? What happens if you don't make a great decision here? And one of the questions I love to ask and dive into is, what if we don't make a decision here?
Yep.
And what's
the consequence of
that? What's the consequence? And the reality in the world of technology, and technology tools and systems and help, is that the no decision is the most often.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And so we'll spend eons and hours of buying cycles and look through things, and then at the end of the day, they decide to kick the can down the road.
Yep. Something else I see happening, I did work for a number of years in a large telco, thousands of people. A classic thing, right, is the minute you talk about efficiencies, potential headcount reduction, right?
Mm-hmm.
The leadership team and I've been in that team and I've sat in that room, right? And they take the benefit instantly, okay, before they've implemented any technology. So you go, if we build this thing, right, we can take 30 headcounts, we can make a 30 FTE efficiency within our call center, example, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they go, done, right? And then the CFO takes those 30 people out of the budget, and you go, guys, we haven't done anything.
No.
We haven't implemented anything. And it's like, and I see this with AI, like a little bit on steroids, right? Because they're going, hold on, is this efficiency? And it's like, what does that do to the people, right? Like you got to be real careful here, man.
They do it even when there's a cost reduction, right? It doesn't even have to be AI or a new tool, right? So a lot of the conversations I have are, hey, we're going to go to market our contract's up on this thing, this service, this tool that we're using, right? Do you have better options for me? Yes. We get into that situation, they find out they can save X amount of money over the term of the agreement. And you're exactly right. CIO is going to his next budget meeting saying, I just found this money, right? Yeah. We're going to go buy that new tool that I really want with the money I'm saving from the other tool, right? Yeah. And so it gets used right away. Yeah. And that's just how things are being done. As a matter of fact, some of my lower level technology executives, it's very transparent. What are we going to save? What are we going to save? And what are you going to do with that dollars? Oh, well, I have another project over here I need it for.
Yeah. Right? And because why I think this is such an important thing for companies to acknowledge, right, is that this is opportunity. But when you are dealing with a company which at the end of the day is staffed by people trying to create value and serve customers, right? Mm-hmm. You need to think about how your people are. How prepared are they? How ready are they? I talk a lot to my clients about like the need for growth mindset, right? Everything we're discussing right now, if you're not in the executive boardroom, if you're even at a -2, -3 level, right, you might not even be getting this. Mm-hmm. But it's like, you've got to be in a growth mindset where this change is opportunity, right? You've got to understand why. And you've got to, as an organization, you've got to really invest in that. Yeah. Otherwise, you make these technology decisions for the right reasons that land like a pile of sick on Tuesday morning, right? With the 150 people whose lives you've just changed.
That's right.
Right? And the way what organizations need to do at times of big technology change, and I think we're in one of those now, is they've got to get their people ready to adapt and adopt.
Oh, for sure. And one of the things you're touching on my hottest topic, my favorite topic personally, and that's growth. Okay. And so I learned a term in junior high school, adapt or perish, right? Darwin. And it was, the whole evolution, like those that don't adapt die. And so I learned that very often. I had a CIO of mine point out to me many years ago that one of the things he admired in me was my ability to change, my ability to he said, reinvent yourself. You've reinvented yourself a few times, Mike, as I see on your career path. And he's right. And I look to that as a compliment, that I'm agile, and that I have the ability, the wherewithal, the fortitude, whatever you want to say, to be able to go and reinvent. AI is another chapter in the reinvention here and what it is that I do. And I've had to make sacrifices, changes, investments of time, effort, money to go and be abreast and polish my game.
Okay, so everything you've just described is how companies need to think about what is happening to them, right? They must invest, right? Because it's a fallacy to think that the average employee in the average company, in Orange County, in LA County, whatever, are adaptable and changeable. They're not, right? And I know this because it's all I've done for the last 8 years is work with organizations that are trying to do this. So it's and the way you counter that is everything you've just described, which is right. We have to invest in this, right? So when you're thinking about big technology change, you've got to think about, you could call it change management, but change management at times like this is quite acute. Yeah. Because this isn't there's a new way to do your timesheets. It's come on, guys. This is not that.
Right.
Right. So I think the thing that organizations need to really think about is, what are they doing? We started this conversation, didn't we? This is about technology. It's never just technology. There's people around that technology. And that would be my big challenge to people. It's while you're assessing this incredible opportunity, and it is incredible, what are you doing to make sure that your organization is everything you've just described? Adaptable, change able, not changeable, change able, right? What are you doing so they look at individually, personally, the opportunity that this change represents for them? Are they aligned to the direction of the business and why you're making these changes, right? This shit matters.
It does. And so I'll flip it back to you. How would you suggest a company do that, make that change available, right? So when some of my more forthright customers, ones that are actually ahead of this, if you will, are thinking through, how do I train my people? How do I give them the right tools so they can go? Some are you giving them allowances to go to after market classes. They're going to schools, things of that nature. And when they do that, they're finding that people are more loyal, that they're better suited to be able to help. But how do you recommend when you're talking to a client to do that? Because I've seen different ways in which companies are going about it.
Yeah, the one of the most important things is to be really clear on what you call your why story, right? So businesses evolve, they change, they have to adapt. Why you are making the changes you're making and aligning that to what I would call your purpose, right? Companies are understanding how important that is. If you ask Anna on a Wednesday morning, if you tell her, we're making this massive change, Anna, right? Man, she better understand why. Right? And if she believes in the purpose of the business, she works for this company because she really believes in it. And what we know, right, these Gen Z guys coming up, that's going to be 40% of our workforce really soon that will only work for a company with purpose that they believe in. Right? Forget about it.
They have to have a vested interest in the mission.
So the first thing is the mission, the purpose of this business is important to me. So make it clear why you're doing this. Okay, if you do, so that's one thing. Then it's all about just leaning into the skilling, the reskilling, the upskilling. And I guess that's my point from a couple of minutes ago, which is there's a technology investment, right? There's an investment you must make in your team. Yeah, spend 250 grand here, spend 250 grand here as well, right? So I think if you have funding decisions being made in isolation, that's a mistake. Right? So, but there's a number of things you need to do, but it's all about if I summarize it in my mind, it's like you want to bring your organization with you, like be clear on why and how this is going to get us to our North Star, right?
Sure.
We want to move here. Are you coming?
Yeah.
And like, if you can tell that story powerfully, it can really work wonders.
And so I wonder, I don't know, but I wonder if companies are hesitant to train their folks or have their folks go out and get generic type of training, or let them figure out what kind of training they want to go get, or extracurricular training. And because it's A, going to take time away from them, but B, are they worried that they're going to leave? Right? Hey, I just went and got certified from MIT Sloan online course for MIT. I'm wondering if I had that as an employee someplace, would I be able to take that certificate and go land a better job?
We said earlier before we came onto the podcast, a couple of phrases I love, right? There's a saying that is in my top 3, right? What if we train them and they leave?
Yeah.
What if we don't and they stay?
Yep, that's worse.
Okay, exactly. It's like, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
So like, I absolutely come from a place that says, like, train your people, right? Like, we've got, like, if you think as an employer you have more than 3 years out of anyone, you're wrong.
Especially in my world and the technology roles, folks have to adapt quickly, right? And things change quickly. Tools and systems change quickly. It used to be that people would have a logo on the technology and they would train for that logo. They would go, get Cisco certified, and they would fly a Cisco flag in their office, and then lo and behold, they bought a bunch of Cisco, right? And so that was kind of how the training went. Today, it's different. Today, there's outcomes, there's drivers, there's AI, for example. What form, what are we trying to accomplish with it? What data do we have, and how do we go and use it? That's the kind of training that I think folks should go to and work on helping. If it's finance, if your job is to make sure that you're working on the budgets in the technology departments, there's new ways of accounting. There's new ways of looking at financing. There's new ways of attracting and becoming a revenue generating center versus a cost center, which happens in a lot of the businesses.
I think there's a really important thing here, which is when we think about training, right? Like, I would say, teach mindset before you teach specific skills, right? And what I mean by that is, if you've got an organization going through a lot of change, and let's face it, every organization is about to face an accelerated rate of change because of AI and other technologies, right? What you got, the real trick is to teach your people to think and feel a certain way, right? Get their mindset right. Because if you can fill your organization with people that have I used it before, but like a growth mindset, i.e. like, I'm okay with this change because change happens and we need to adapt, and we need, it's like, you will have a very productive and very fertile team of people to introduce change to.
Sure.
Right? So don't think first about teaching these guys an MIT course on generative AI. First,
it's a good course, by the way.
Teach them how to see change as opportunity.
Yes.
Right? It's like, you got to do that first.
Sure. Opportunity for them personally as well as the business.
Correct. Yeah.
Right?
No, absolutely for them personally.
Yeah. And so I look back I've worked for some big companies, right? I've worked for the last decade, I worked for tiny companies, right? And so both worked the exact same to the best benefit, which was when we were treated like your own entrepreneurial enterprise, right? Yeah. So you have entrepreneurship to be able to go and do things on your own, as long as you're meeting the key requirements. There was freedom, flexibility to go about it. There wasn't micromanagement going on with it. It was just things of that nature. So I believe that accountability to the role, to the job, to the goal that we're trying to set is important. But most important, I think entrepreneurship, the ability to be able to do things as a team of individuals, even as hey, we're a Tiger team, has been, in my personal experience and some of my best clients, that's how they operate, right?
So stand out. Yeah, if you want to create high-performing organizations, that quality is a standout criteria, right? So when I work with organizations, the ones that are that introduce innovation, empowerment, right? Like have 3x better value delivery than ones that don't. It's a secret sauce, right?
Yeah.
Hard though.
Yeah.
So,
Hard, you got to build the environment. You have to be able to let people make decisions on their own on certain things. You can have a hierarchical structure of approvals if it's fast and efficient.
Yeah.
But most importantly, people need to know that, hey, this is our baby, and we win together as a team.
Yeah.
And then, you talked about the Gen Z. They want to be rewarded, right? They want to be acknowledged. They want to be recognized and acknowledged for their contribution to what they're doing, right? And however you feel about that is not important. It is, in my opinion.
Yeah, but
it
it's
just is.
Ignore that, man. Like at your peril.
Yes.
Like
if you ignore it at your peril.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm seeing. I'm seeing. I'm the father of two. 19 and 16-year-old daughters. Like I'm seeing them, and I'm visualizing them moving into the workforce. And it's like, okay, they're going to be 40% of this thing real quick.
Yes.
Like figure that shit out. If you are sat as a boomer about to retire and you don't get it, right? Like surround yourself with people that do.
Yes.
Because if you ignore this, there's going to be a very significant disconnect with your organization.
I personally don't have any direct reports. I have one, and he's a baby boomer, right? He is definitely not a Gen Z individual. However, I've been in 3 different trainings over the last year that are all about Gen Z.
Yeah.
Because that's the amount of people coming into the workforce. Yeah. They're going to be my customers. They're going to be the employees at the companies that I'm working with, right? They're going to be my suppliers. They're going to be the reps that are representing these companies that are out there in the field. Yep. And I need to know how they operate, right? And so it's just a different mindset. And again, back to being a growth-oriented individual, I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to table what my preconceived notions are about things and look at what will work best in this situation and what is working and what's not working.
Yep.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I don't think it's common in the common enterprise that people are thinking like this, that they're thinking entrepreneurially, or they're thinking about what's our market value, what are we doing as an organizational for the world, right? What's our place in the world? People don't normally think about that.
Yeah.
They're thinking about market position and how can we profit.
Yeah, and I think like this is actually a great way to just wrap up this conversation, because like what I think is what I've seen happen, right, is you can activate these things you've talked about in an organization, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's about just, you have to have high levels of trust, okay, within your teams. But when you say, hey, we want to get these teams, like take some executives say to me, I want my teams to be more accountable. So, okay, good news. They want that too, right? Like they do, right? Especially like, if they, these are teams that are clear on their direction, clear on goals, right? Mm-hmm. They want to be accountable for those things. Within a framework of accountability, right? If you can drive rapid decision-making, you can do a lot of the things you've described, right? There's ways to do this that will activate the organization. It starts to look really different. So like you don't see much of it. The good news is the great companies like in the US and overseas are doing this, for 15,000 people. And those are the guys who are going to be able to adopt this technology and create like absolute next level results, right? Mm-hmm. So it's going to take both those things, which I think is a really nice way to circle this back and say, super interesting. Thank you so much for being here. And a great conversation. We could go on for days, but
we could. I have a feeling we've just scratched the surface of this. So whether we take it to the Boardroom Sessions podcast next or what have you,
let's do it again. Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
But thanks for your time, man. And we'll call it quits there.
Happy to help.
All right.
Hey, Mike here. Hope you liked this boardroom session. Please check back to your future sessions as we're recording a new one every month. If you want to reach out, look for me on LinkedIn or send me a note at mike@sidepath.com. That's mike@sidepath.com.